Hi again. Here we are to continue talking about React and React Native. And in the last video we made just a scroll view with some cells, and I had named these cells, timer cell, because I had meant to take our timer component and put it into the cell just for fun, right? To show us how everything is composable, right? And so why don't we do that here? Okay, so far we've got our cells showing up, and what I'd like to do now is I'd like to take the timer component, the timer thing, and put one timer thing in each cell. Okay, so let's import the timer thing. Right now I'm in the timer cell component, right? And I'll take a timer thing, I'll define it here, and we'll import it from timer thing. And then we'll insert a timer thing here. Okay, and there we go, right? So that's pretty good. We probably need to do some styling here because there might not be enough room in there for the timer thing. We'll give it a test, right? Yeah, so it's a little too big. I can't quite see it. I think it's underneath here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to our styles here, and I'm going to take out the height. Maybe I'll leave the height in there. I don't know. Let's do this first, right? So remember, container now is the view that represents one cell, okay? And then inside that cell we have two children, okay? So if this cell is a flex container, then these children are flex items, okay? So this will be a little look at Flexbox again. So for the container, let's give it a flex of 1, okay? And then what we'll say is we'll say, hey, you know what? Let's justify your content, okay? So the content in here, I want to justify it, right? And so let's say I want to determine like how it's spread out across here, right? So I want the number on this side and the timer on this side. So what I'll do is I'll say space between, okay? Normally these things will align in a column, so we'd have the number on top and then the timer would go on the bottom, but I want them to spread out in a row, so I'm going to say flex direction is row. Okay? I think we still need a little more work there. Let's see what that looks like, right? So we'll refresh it again here, and now you can see we've got our timer on this, or we got the number of the cell on this side. That's the text right here. And then the timer thing is on the other side. And space between says that all the space, all the extra space goes between the two elements, right? If we switch this to center, oops, there we go, center, right? Then the two items are, pushed together, but they both sit in the middle. So here's the number, and then there's the timer, right? So now the height of the cell is not big enough to hold the timer, so the pause button kind of sits here, right? So, but there's all of our timers. We got 20 timers, right? Okay. So, if we did space around, right, then we would get an equal space on the left and the right of each element. So there'd be an equal space here and here, and that would be equal to the space here and here, right? Okay, so I think for this one, I like the space between, but you feel free to do yours however you want, right? So we've got that, and it's looking like this. And now we've got a couple other issues. I don't like the way the timer runs automatically, and I don't like that I can't see this pause button. Like, that's kind of a problem. Let's try and take the height out of here, and then I think it should set the height to the height of the content. Let's give that a try, right? Oh yeah, there we go, right? So that works pretty good. We might have to change the height here, the line height there, right? Maybe we should do it this way. Let's change, instead of doing line height on this guy, let's change, so I removed line height on the ID text object, right? So I removed it off of there, and then I'm going to go to container here, and let's use align items. Okay, so align items determines how the flex elements or flex items work in the cross axis. So right now our axis is the row direction, so it's in row. Okay, so on the cross axis, we can determine how things align by using align items. So let's say align item center. Right, so now this text object here is aligned vertically in the center, and so is this thing, but this is actually the tallest thing in there, so the container is just as tall as this is, right? So that's working pretty good, but now we have a little issue there because our timer is just running automatically, right? That's how we kind of set it up originally, right? Let's go in and edit the timer thing, right? So timer thing is here, and when we call component will mount, it calls this dot start timer, and that runs the timer. So we could take this out, right? And then our timer wouldn't run, right? Let's make that the default. But what if you created a timer and you wanted it to run automatically? Why don't we pass that into this component as a prop, right? So that's better. It's not really a state. It's kind of like a configuration element, right? So what we'll do is we'll pass in a prop here, and I'll show you how props work with the class-based components, right, or stateful components, right? So let's just pass in a property called on, right? And that'll be the default value, right? So what we'll do is we'll go down here to component will mount, and we'll say, hey, if this dot props dot on, then start timer. Otherwise, the default value here will be false, right? It'll be not running, right? So so now if I save that and then I go back here and I refresh, all my timers are stopped, and if I tap on one, I can start it. I can start those two or this third one here, right? And I can pause those guys, right? But if I wanted to start the timers off and have them run from the beginning, then, and let's go to our scrolling, our cell example here. So if these guys were all supposed to be running from the beginning, then on timer thing here, when we create an instance of it, we can say on equals true, right? So now when we refresh, all of our timers are running, right? But if we say, on is false for the timers, or if we don't have this, then it'll be false by default, right? Or undefined, then they're not running, okay? So anyway, I hope that's interesting for you, and maybe gives you an idea of how components are composed and how to use the scroll view and kind of break your projects up into modular pieces, okay? So thanks for watching, and good luck with your projects.